Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're doing another, I'll say another session. I call it the Savvy Agent. And this time around, I'm sharing how to build wealth out of state. And it's basically my story, the story of myself and my husband, and how we started out of state investing. So hopefully you guys enjoy the stories and learn some lessons along the way. The house here on the right-hand side is actually one of our rental properties. This is one down in Southern Virginia. This was one of our most recent acquisitions. It was a single family house that we picked up off market from postcards and were able to turn into a duplex. Now let's see if I can actually click the slides to go through. There we go. All right. So most of you do know me, but those of you that don't, my name is Anna Bialek. This is kind of the story of how we got started. I'm going into my 5th year as a real estate agent, probably my 4th year as a real estate investor. Before that, I did work for the Department of Navy. I was a civilian, a federal employee for almost 20 years. My husband is my best friend. He's retired Navy. We actually met at work. So we're second marriages. So I learned from the first time, have 2 beautiful kids from the first time around, but definitely did much better the second time around. Hopefully my ex-husband isn't watching this. I'm a mom of 4, 2 his and 2 mine. We're a blended family. And like it says there, became a real estate investor in 2023. I say that because we did buy a COVID house in North Carolina back in the 2020s, 2021. And we were like, oh, this is a great investment property. The numbers make sense. But to be honest, we didn't know what real estate investing really meant. We just wanted a beach house. And we're like, this is great. This is a great investment. But we didn't truly treat it like a real estate investment probably until 2023 when we actually learned what real estate investing meant. So it's not my journey into real estate wasn't traditional. I didn't start out wanting to be a real estate agent. That wasn't like something that I had even really thought of or considered until I was, well into my Navy career. And I started to see a lot of my mentors not make it to retirement. They got sick. They couldn't leave because they needed insurance. I've said this to folks before. My husband and I we weren't married at the time, but we were both there the day of the Navy Yard shooting. And it was a huge mental shift for us. And we needed to do something different. I needed to do something different. I had a friend in real estate that had left government work and was doing really well in real estate. And I said, wow, this could be my opportunity to do something different, to kind of build my own business. And then as a real estate agent, I loved real estate, but I realized that I was still working for money as a real estate agent. I could sell a house, I could help people buy and sell homes. But the minute that I stopped doing that, I was at the mercy of those transactions. I couldn't live my life the way that I had envisioned it. So that's where real estate investing came in. And I realized real estate investing was a way for me to pursue my passion of real estate and still build wealth where I wasn't tied to a job. I wasn't still working for money. And I truly want to build something that creates a life for me where I live without a bunch of I wish I would have. So I don't want to get to the end of my life and look back and have regrets. And I learned that actually at a class that Dave and Kristen had at their house not too long ago, where we were talking about what motivates us. And the stick definitely motivates me more than the carrot. So, I of course want to create beautiful memories. These are my family. That's my husband there. These are my girls. This is me crying because my oldest left and grew up and moved off to Wisconsin on her own. So my husband was like, here, say cheese. And I'm like, okay. And then these are the fur babies that we now have. We have an 11-year-old boxer mix. And then somehow I convinced Brian right before Christmas of this past year that we needed another dog. So that's our new puppy there, Teddy. All right, so that's me. Let's see if I can get this to click. Okay. So this is my path to real estate investing. Like I said before, I loved being an agent, but I quickly realized I was still working for money. And when I stopped working, the money stops flowing. And the book that changed my life, and I've told several of you this before, The Cash Flow Breakfast Club. It's a book, it's a story, it's a really short read, it's a parable, it's an easy read. You can read it on a plane ride to the West Coast. And I don't even know how I came across it. I'm an avid reader. And I read this book. And the premise is about a real estate agent who's very successful, makes lots of money, but still ends up living in their car because they don't actually do anything with that money except for spend it on things that are not going to bring them wealth. And I realized that the author of this book actually lives in Northern Virginia where I am. And so I started stalking him in like a weird, not a weird, creepy kind of way. And I realized he had investor meetups locally that you could attend. And he had one closer to us in Fairfax County. And I signed my husband up and I said, hey, babe, I signed us up for this thing. I don't know what's going to happen. They'll probably try to sell us something. They never did. We ended up joining this community and we have been part of it ever since. And this is what started the ball rolling for us in real estate investing. This is how we started learning about real estate investing. And why we chose out of state is because real estate investing, I mean, there's risk in everything. And here in Northern Virginia, we are in a very expensive market. And we made the conscious decision that we wanted to start real estate investing. We knew there were lessons that we were going to learn along the way. And if we were going to learn those lessons, we preferred to learn them in areas where we could buy properties for $100,000 and learn those lessons on $100,000 properties versus learning those lessons locally on $800,000 properties, which is kind of, our price point here. And so we made the conscious decision to start investing out of state first so we could learn the lessons that we needed to learn. Because even though we're surrounded by a community of people that have helped us immensely, like it's just like having teenagers. Like you can tell them what's going to happen, but they have to learn it on their own. So I feel like it's the same thing with real estate investing. Okay. So step one, and this is kind of our path. This is how Brian and I went through our path. So when you're considering real estate investing, and I'll be honest, a lot of these same steps apply to local investing. If you're in a market where you feel comfortable investing locally and starting out that way, is you want to define your investment goals. So the first thing you want to understand is what are you looking to get out of real estate investing? Some people look for cash flow, which means you're getting there's a surplus every month that you're getting into your bank account. Some people don't necessarily need the cash flow right away. So they're looking for appreciation. This is more like putting money in a savings account and like watching it grow over time. So you're looking for markets where they're usually more expensive properties. They may not cash flow as well, where you're not getting money, but maybe you're breaking even or you're making a minimal amount if you buy correctly. But you know that those property values are going to go up exponentially over time. So you're looking for an appreciation market. I will go back to cash flow real quick. In a lot of cash flow markets, they are not appreciation markets. A lot of those tend to be very heavy, like renter markets. And in many cases, those don't appreciate as much. So you don't get the benefit of appreciation. In a lot of appreciation markets, you don't get the benefits of cash flow. But there is the holy grail. There are some markets, if you look for them, that you can do a little bit of both. These are the hardest ones to find. And these are areas where you're generating cash flow. May not be tons of cash flow, but you're generating cash flow and there's appreciation. And those tend to be markets that are growing. Those tend to be markets that maybe I'll say like in our case, one of the markets we're in was an old mill town. The mill went away. And to some extent, the town kind of died. Like there were still people there, but it definitely shrunk quite a bit. But then in recent years, there have been investments into that town from the government, from local businesses. And so now it's expanding back out and they have multiple businesses investing in this community. So it's kind of at that tipping point where it hasn't completely taken off. It's starting to. So you can still pick up properties at a good deal. And make them cash flow, but you know that there's a promise of appreciation because there's a lot of population and economic growth. Those are the holy grail markets. Those are a little harder to find, and you really have to kind of like dig into research. The next step, once you've decided what your goal is for real estate investing, whether it's cash flow appreciation or a combination of the two, is figuring out what we call a buy box. A buy box is essentially what type of property are you looking for? And if you work with investors, this is a great question for them to really kind of understand how, I'll say advanced they are. Like if you get a newbie investor, they may not understand what a buy box is. So this is a good qualifying question for any of your investor clients or anybody that reaches out to you that says they're an investor. But what are you looking for in a house? Like what defines the property that you're looking for? Because when you are looking out of state, I'm not an agent in Ohio. That's where some of our properties are. So we had to reach out to real estate agents and interview real estate agents out in these areas that I'm not an agent in, that we were not familiar with. And one of the first things, they're a good agent, they will ask you what your buy box is, because you can't just tell an agent, I'm looking for a good deal, because that means nothing. Like, that's like, okay, I don't know what that means. So are you looking for single family homes? Are you looking for multifamily homes? And in this case, I'm talking strictly about residential. You can do this with commercial too, but Brian and I have focused on residential at this point in our investing career. So are you looking for single family homes? Or are you looking for multifamily homes? And part of this is like, who are you trying to serve? So with building characteristics, you have to consider, do you want places that are turnkey that you can pretty much buy and move people right in? Do you want something that requires a little bit of light rehab? So maybe you can get a better deal on it, or heavy renovations. That's probably the hardest one to do out of state. We've done some of those too. So those are not easy, but a lot of times you get the biggest bang for your buck if it requires some heavier renovations, if you can find a good team. Some other characteristics that we try to look for is things that make the property as simple as possible to maintain it. Like, does it have a single hip roof? Is it on a slab foundation? A lot of times, if you have properties that have crawl spaces or things like that, you end up with like moisture issues. And so simple shapes, rectangles are fantastic. We don't always follow these rules, but these are kind of the things that we've like started ticking off and creating a list of like, okay, as we move forward in our investing journey, these are the types of properties we want to look for. Ability to add value. And when I say add value, I don't necessarily mean like doing tons of rehab to it, but a lot of times you'll get a place that maybe has a half bath somewhere that you can convert into a full bath, or maybe there's an unfinished basement that you can convert and you can finish it and maybe turn it into an additional unit. Like that one property on the cover, that was a single family house. And as a single family house, it did not cash flow and it did not make sense for us to buy it and rehab it. But as a duplex, we were able to do an apartment upstairs and an apartment downstairs within the same footprint. And that added value for us. And now that property does cash flow because we have tenants upstairs and tenants downstairs. And if anyone has questions, feel free to jump in and ask. I will try to leave time at the end. Okay, so we've decided what our goals are. We've decided what our buy box is. Now you want to look at the markets. And this is what I was saying before. You have to do some research, because location really does drive everything in real estate, whether it's a cash flow market, an appreciation market. And so some of the things that you want to look at when you are researching a market, and I do use AI, that's part of my bonus tip at the bottom, to do a lot of this research, is employment and income. Where are people working? You want to make sure that there's more than one large employer in an area, because like these mill towns or these steel towns, like up in like Pittsburgh, like once that industry like shutters, then that whole that whole economy ends up dying. So you want to look for places that have multiple employers. Where are people working? What's the average income in this area? Because you want to make sure they can actually pay the rental rates that you're looking to charge for your rentals. And I will say, I didn't say this earlier, our portfolio is mostly buy and hold. We don't do fix and flips at this point. So we're looking at this through the lens of someone that's buying properties out of state, renting them out, and keeping them and renting them out. You also want to look at growth indicators. Look for businesses that are actually moving into the area, not just like how many businesses are there now, but are there any influxes coming in of new businesses that are looking to lay ground in this area, lay roots in the area? Are there population growth trends that are signaling that it's a healthy market? Like, are people actually moving to this area, or are they moving out? Like, you have to know, this kind of ties into the one that says demographics and regulations. Like, are people getting older and aging out of this market? And the local demographics in that regards talks about things like that. Like, if you're in a market that the average age is like 60, if you're buying a townhouse that's like 3 levels and lots of stairs, then that may not like fit together. So that's part of understanding the demographics and understanding the local laws and regulations too, because in some places they regulate how many unrelated parties can live in the same property. So when you're trying to figure out how you would like to rent out the property, or if you want to change it into a multi-unit building, you have to understand those laws and regulations ahead of time so you can make sure you have multiple exit strategies for your property. The other thing is the cost analysis. Like, if you're in a market where it costs just as much to rent as it does to buy, that's probably not a good market, and you want to understand those dynamics. A lot of these markets are very heavy, like the ones that we've invested in tend to be in a lot of the blue collar areas, kind of the Midwest down towards the South, where it is cheaper to rent than it is to own. So you always have a heavy renting population. So you know you're always going to have a customer for your product. If it costs just as much, like I said, to own a property as it does to rent it, that kind of tips the scale, and you may end up with a property on your hands that you can't get rented because they could just buy the house next door. A bonus tip that I use, so I use AI for basically researching all of these indicators, but something that I've learned from a mentor and I tell folks is go on and ask ChatGPT or Grok or whatever your preferred platform is to research and see where companies like Starbucks, Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, where are they opening new stores? Because they've already done the market research. These companies have millions of dollars to invest in these types of market research, in this type of market research. So if they're opening locations in a town that you're like interested in or potentially like thinking of investing in, that's a good sign that they see potential in that market, because they're not going to open stores in markets they're not going to profit them. I take some water because I'm like, whew. All right. So next up, and this happens locally as well as out of state, but you want to build your investor friendly team because they will make or break your success. Trust me, I know this firsthand. And just recognize that not all professionals in these fields are truly investor friendly, because a lot of people say they're investor friendly. And I know that there's a lot of real estate agents that say they're investor friendly, but I call baloney. I don't think all agents are truly investor friendly. I think there's probably agents that work with investors and they get the investor gives them a deal and says, this is what I want to buy, this is how much I want to buy or to buy it for. And the agent pushes the paper along. But if you ask the agent to explain to you why that's a good deal, why is the investor buying it? What is, what's the after repair value? Most agents can't explain that. And if you can find agents or lenders or property managers or accountants, any of these people that are truly like understand real estate investing, they will be your best friends because they understand the ins and outs so much better. So finding an agent, find someone who truly understands investment properties, not just someone who claims to be investor friendly. A lot of times I'll ask an agent if they own their own investment properties, because then they understand what it's like to buy properties, rehab properties, property manage properties. And a lot of times those types of agents that have also been involved in the real estate investing world, they have a network of other investor friendly vendors that they can tie you to. Same thing with lenders. Working with lenders that are experienced in investment property financing and out-of-state deals, they can be your best friend because they can get creative. They can get creative in how they help you finance deals, how they can help you with interest rates. If they know about investor products like DSCR loans through a good lender, that's debt service coverage ratio loan. That is a loan that's given to LLCs, and it's one that a lot of investors use when they are refinancing a property, because it's not tied to their credit. It is tied to the income that the property can generate. So when you have a lender that knows about real estate investing, and a lot of times is an investor themselves, they know how to use I'll say the mortgage rules and tools to your best advantage when it comes to financing or refinancing investment properties. Vendors and contractors, this is like the holy grail. Investors are very willing to share their tools and their experiences, but a lot of investors are not willing to share their contractor information because it's so hard to find good contractors. So once you find one, like you dig in and you hold on to them. There are some investors that are willing to share if you can partner with them, because they do want to keep these contractors busy and keep them employed. And if they have a lull in their work, this may be a good opportunity to partner with someone. But if you don't have anyone in a market, or if your agent or your lender doesn't have any good recommendations, or you want to find some of your own, some of the tools that I have used and had success with are apps called Thumbtack for finding like handymen, electricians, plumbers. You can find a variety of things, photographers. We found a flooring person in North Carolina. I found handy people for Ohio. And Turno. Turno is an app for finding cleaners. So if you have properties where you need cleaners to go do like the turnover for a short-term rental, a mid-term rental, sometimes even turnover properties for a long-term rental. Turno is a good platform to use where you can look up cleaners in the area and they're reviewed and you can interview them. And in all of these platforms, both of these platforms, you can actually put what you're looking for, and the app will contact the different vendors that you select and kind of tell them what you're looking for so they can come back to you and provide a bid. So I've had great success with both of those tools. Property manager, you need to decide if you want to manage yourself, which from a distance seems daunting, but I will say there are lots of tools out there now that make managing from a distance much easier. I do manage quite a bit of our portfolio myself from a distance, or you can hire a property manager. They both have pros and cons. This is like finding a good contractor. If you can find a good, solid property manager, you want to hold on to them and treat them like gold. But not all property managers are, I'll say, responsive or super good. We've paid the price of having a bad property manager. And so we understand now what we look for in a property manager. You want to understand how they communicate, how they handle different situations. Because in a lot of cases, property managers, like something goes wrong, they'll send over a handyman, charge you hundreds of dollars when it's something that they could easily have told the, tenants, like, just turn the faucet this way. So you have to decide in that regard whether you want to try to manage it yourself. Personally, I think it's good to have a property manager to have boots on the ground if you have a difficult property, but I think everyone should at least attempt or learn what it's like to manage your own rental properties if you are going to buy and hold properties, because then you know what to look for when you are ready to hire a property manager. From personal experience, we bought our properties in Ohio, and we were kind of under the impression that if you just buy a property, you get a property manager and it's like hands off. And that is not the case. Real estate investing is not passive in any regard. There are more passive ways to real estate invest than others, but there is always some sort of contact when it comes to real estate investing. And so we chose a property manager in Ohio. We didn't know what we didn't know. We had like a basic list of questions, but we didn't know how to dig in. And we got a property manager and it was like a bad relationship. We're like, we can fix it. It can be better. And in our gut, we knew we probably should fire her for like a year and a half. And, I don't regret anything we've done because we've learned from our mistakes and we've had some pretty big mistakes. And we've learned from all of them. And so like going forward, we are much more experienced and then we can pass that on to other people. But having a bad property manager can make or break a deal. So that is, matter of fact, been there, done that. With attorneys and accountants, even if you're not in real estate investing, I think as an agent, having a good attorney and a good accountant to help you set things up properly is another factor that I don't think most of us think about. In our case, we have several LLCs. I have an S Corp for my real estate business. And having an attorney that actually understands real estate investing and structures and the best way to help shield you from liability, because that's what the attorney will do. The attorney will help you set up structures that will help with liability. The accountant will help you set things up. They kind of work hand in hand. So having a good team of attorney accountants that are both real estate savvy, they work together because the accountant will then help you from the tax perspective, like what's the best way to maximize the tax advantages. Because there are lots of tax advantages to real estate investing. There have always been some, which is why wealthy people tend to gravitate towards real estate investing, because there's lots of I don't want to say loopholes, but tax laws in place that favor those that know how to use them for real estate investing. And regardless of what you think of the current administration, there is lots of things written into the BBB, that's all I'm going to call it, that favor real estate investors. That are huge advantages if you know how to use them. So they're not tax advantages that are just for the wealthy, like the regular everyday agent or worker can figure out how to use them. It's much easier to do it if you have a good accountant that can walk you through the best way to use those loopholes. And I will say, so how do you find these people? So in a lot of cases, that's me and a group of our investor friends. That's Omni, actually, this guy right here. He's the guy that wrote the Cash Flow Breakfast Club book. And now we're like really good friends, which is kind of awesome. Some of my best friends are now investors. So how to find your team, meetups and conferences. So if you go to local real estate meetups, you can definitely meet other people that invest in certain markets that you might be interested in. And like I said, most real estate investors are really willing to help you. Like I said, sometimes when it comes to their contractors, they may be a little squirrely, um, but it is a good place. Conferences, there's lots of national conferences you can go to. We go to one called Bigger Pockets, the Bigger Pocket BPCon. It's a Bigger Pockets conference. Bigger Pockets is a huge educational real estate investing educational platform. They have blogs, they have books, they have podcasts, and they have a huge investor conference. And it's fantastic for networking. I will even say if your brokerage, and with EXP, in case you didn't know it, our brokerage has a large annual meeting, and there's lots of real estate agents that are truly investor agents that go to even these kind of brokerage meetings. So if your brokerage has like a large national meeting every year where you have agents that come together, that's another great opportunity to kind of put your feelers out there and find agents that are truly investor friendly agents in markets you're interested in, and start picking their brain about like what types of resources do they have, what people do they know in those areas. Online forums, Facebook groups. There's tons of Facebook groups. If you type in, we're in Akron, Ohio real estate investing, you'll get a long list of groups that are real estate related, real estate investing related. I usually look for groups that have a good number of folks in it, several hundred or at least 1,000. That looks like it's active, like engaging, like there's posts being posted regularly. You can usually look at that before you join the group, and see how much activity there is. In a lot of those Facebook groups, you can go in and you can like do a search. You can put in like, I'm looking for a handyman in this particular market. And you usually get people that will either respond because they've used a handyman and they give you that information, or you'll get responses from like people that do that trade work that are in those groups, also looking for business. I do caveat that with make sure you do your research. I Google them. Like if I find someone in a Facebook group as a vendor, I go to Google, I go to Yelp. I try to do everything I can to find their reviews to make sure they're like legit. Bigger Pockets, I mentioned them already. They also have a forum you can join for free. There's a free membership and a paid membership. But with the free membership, you can go into the forums and you can do similar like what you do to Facebook groups. You can go into forums that are specific to the market that you're looking to invest in. And you can actually ask for recommendations for vendors. And Bigger Pockets specifically actually has a search function. I think they have one for lenders too, but we haven't used that one. We use the one for real estate agents. They have real estate agents that are knowledgeable about investing, and they sign up with Bigger Pockets and basically get put on a list. So if you're looking in the market, you get a list of real estate agents that have been vetted by Bigger Pockets, and you can interview them. That's how we found our agent in Akron, Ohio, was through the Bigger Pockets forum. Your network, leverage your agent network. I talked about this a little bit back in the conference section. Like, even if you're not going to a conference, like our brokerage specifically has a huge network. Like I can go online into like our communication platform and I can look in a market. I've done it before. I've asked for property managers in certain areas. I've looked for vendors, and see who they know. Like we as agents have a huge network all over the country, in some cases, like all over the world. Like tap into that. I have, again, found most agents are pretty willing to have that discussion with you if you reach out and say, hey, I'm an investor in that market, and you have the brokerage connection, so you have something in common already. And why not? You have the network, use it. And then digital tools, internet, social media, like I said before, platforms like Thumbtack to research and connect. Kind of ties into the previous stuff, but there's lots of tools out there. I mean, even if you went on your Facebook page and said, hey, I'm looking to invest in this market, do you know anyone that does? You'd be surprised at the things that people answer. They're like, oh, I grew up in that town. I had no idea you were looking to invest there. Like my uncle still lives there and he can connect you with people. Like it's just like with being an agent. You got to put yourself out there, and you'd be surprised at the resources that like are right at your fingertips if you just ask for them. Okay, so you've figured out what you want to do, where you want to be, what you're looking for. You've looked for your team. And now you start looking at deals. And you got to underwrite these deals when you're out of state. Underwriting is what they call basically just doing math back of the napkin. Sometimes you have an elaborate spreadsheet. We have a spreadsheet that we use because the numbers don't lie. With real estate investing, unlike our traditional like retail, I'll say buyers and sellers, it's not emotional. It's not intended. It's not supposed to be emotional. If you're real estate investing and you're starting to get emotional, you probably need to take a step back, because when you're looking at properties from an investor lens, it truly is about the numbers. Does it work or does it not work? You can't, and don't shoehorn it. If you have to tweak things that you normally wouldn't tweak to make the deal work, it's probably not the right deal. So we have to look at the money. You have to look at the dollars and cents. And so these are just a couple rules of thumbs and things that we look at when we're underwriting a deal. So if you have an agent out of state that gives you a long list of properties as potential, one quick rule of thumb that a lot of agents or like investors tend to use is called the 1% rule. And that essentially means that the monthly rent should equal at least 1% of the purchase price. So determining those rental rates, you can use tools. Your agent in that market should be able to give you an idea of what rental rates are. But I always like to sanity check it against tools like rentcast.io. There's some other ones, but rentcast.io is free and has always been pretty accurate in my opinion when I've used it. So rentcast.io, you would put the address of the property or the area that you're looking in, and it'll give you an average rental price. And it also give you a list of what that's based on. So you can go back and kind of dig in a little further if you wanted to verify that information. It'll give you the list of addresses of why it chose that average rental amount, like what that's based off of. And so essentially, if you buy a property that's $100,000, you want to make sure that you can get at least $1,000 in rent. And that's a quick way to kind of whittle down a list. 1% rule is very difficult to get nowadays, especially with interest rates having gone up. So some people flex this rule a little bit. It may not be 1%. They may be like, okay, I'm okay with like 0.8 or 0.7. Some of it really depends on your risk tolerance. But like as close to the 1% rule is just a good rule of thumb. It's not a hard and fast rule. You have to do a little bit more digging, but it's a good way to whittle down a large list of properties that you might be looking at. Something else that we look at is the 75% rule. This is more applicable to people that are looking to do fix and flips. Brian and I do incorporate the 75% rule, even though we do buy and hold investments, because we want to have what we call multiple exit strategies. So if we get a property, we start rehabbing it, there may be a point where we realize maybe this isn't better as a buy and hold rental. Maybe this will be better as a fix and flip. So we do like to apply the 75% rule when we're looking at properties, just to see if at some point, do we give ourselves the option to be able to sell it, rent it once we get, if there's a pivotal point in the decision tree where we decide that's the way to go. And so this rule of thumb essentially means the maximum purchase price for a fix and flip property should be 75% of the ARV, or the after repair value, minus repair costs. So in this case, if you have a $100,000 house, you want to start off, okay, 75% of that. So that'd be $75,000 as the purchase price. But then let's say you need another 20K to get it to the $100,000, like maybe you need some cosmetic makeup or whatever, and you need to put in about $20,000 to get it to sell for that $100,000 mark, then you want to take that, and your max offer price would be about $55,000 on that property if you take that and subtract it down. So that's a good rule of thumb to kind of get you to, okay, what do I offer? And again, this rule has some flexibility. 75% is kind of where we land, and the 75% rule lands around there because typically if you were going to keep the property or refinance the property, you can usually get 75% of the ARV if you were going to refinance that with something like a DSCR loan. So that's part of the reason why you kind of use the 75% rule, because if you do end up wanting to keep it and refinance it and pull money back out of it to continue rolling that money into other investment properties, that's about where you need to land when it comes for how much money you're putting in, is about 75% of the after repair value. Now, when you're underwriting the deal, you have to think of all the expenses that are involved with real estate. And a lot of times people make mistakes, investors make mistakes because they don't think about all the expenses that they might incur on an investment property. And then it completely wrecks the deal when they realize like, oh my God, I have to pay for these extra utilities or these other things. So when you're underwriting a deal and you're looking at expenses as far as what this will cost me to run this property or update this property, you want to look at PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. property management fees if applicable. I always include them, even if I know that I'm going to manage the property myself, because I want to leave myself a cushion in case I don't want to manage the property myself forever. So I do include a buffer in there, usually about 10% for property management fees, even if I know that I may likely run this and manage this property myself, at least initially. Any renovations to get it ready, regular maintenance fees, changing air conditioning filters, getting the smoke detectors changed, getting the HVAC service, capital expenditures. Those are big ticket items. You may buy a property that maybe has an HVAC and the home inspector tells you, hey, this HVAC has probably like another 5 years. So you want to start budgeting that into your expenses right away. So you figure, okay, over 5 years, an HVAC's $10,000. What does that equate to, you know, on a monthly basis when you're figuring out like your expenses for the month? You want to figure that in so you're not blindsided with a huge bill 5 years from now because you didn't plan accordingly for these big capital expenditures. That's like HVACs, roofs. Some people throw water heaters in there for capital expenditures. You also want to think about owner paid utilities. In a lot of cases for long-term rentals, this isn't so much of a thing, but like we have some long-term rentals, like the duplexes we have lawn care included. We pay for the lawn care and like leaves and things like that because it's 2 units on one large lot. And we don't necessarily expect the tenants to take care of the lawn because it's a multi-unit building. So like in that case, we pay for the lawn care. So that's an owner paid utility. One of our buildings also doesn't have separate water meters. So we pay for the water bill that is a landlord or owner paid expense. So you have to make sure you pay attention to like little things like that to make sure you include all of those in your calculus. There's also a vacancy reserve because you're not going to have the unit filled 100% of the time. As much as we would like to, someone's going to move out and there's likely going to be a month or 2 in between if you're lucky, where the property is going to be vacant while you do turnover, while you get it advertised and get it rented. So you want to set aside a little bit of money every month for vacancy reserves when you're doing your calculations. Depending on your vacancy rate over time, you can historically figure out what that averages out to. We usually underwrite a deal where we don't have the historical data. We usually do about 5% in vacancy reserves. Turnover costs is how much is it going to cost to turn over a unit. If you've got good tenants, maybe that's a coat of paint, maybe that's, cleaning the rug. But turnover cost is another one. We probably calculate that a little lower because we were assuming things when we first started real estate investing. And that's one of the costs that bit us in the backside because we did have some great tenants from those property manager decisions that cost a lot more in turnover. But turnover is basically how much it's going to cost you to get the unit rent ready between tenants. And furnishings, if applicable, if you're doing a midterm rental, some people do furnish long-term rentals, or even if you're doing a short-term rental, in this case, you want to make sure you take into account furnishings. Some people like to have multiple exit strategies, so they may have something that pencils as a long-term rental, but they know that they can make more money if they make it a midterm rental, but then they forget to include expenses for furnishings, which could be a couple $1,000s of an initial upfront expense to get the property up and running. All of this is to say, does the difference result in a positive or neutral cash flow? So the rent you're coming in, you've got coming in every month, minus all of these monthly expenses, where do you land? Are you landing neutral or cash flow positive? In a lot of cases, is it negative? We don't go for negative properties. There are some investors that they want the tax write-off. This goes back to having a good accountant. So they don't mind having negative cash flow because they want that as a write-off, as a loss, because maybe they have other investments that are doing really, really well. And it may be a property that's in an appreciating market that they're willing to take that, hit in the shorts every month a little bit because they know that property is going to appreciate. Again, this is you understanding what your risk tolerance and what your goals are, but you really need to understand what that number is. Numbers don't lie. It's all black and white. All right, let's see. And all this, you do get to a point where shit does hit the fan. It's not all roses. You see a lot of investors on social media that have been doing this for many, many years, and they show you the highlight reel, just like most people on social media. They show you the highlight reel of their life, and you think, oh my gosh, this is so easy. Like, this is great. Like, I want to do it. But life happens. Shit does hit the fan, especially when you're a newer investor. Brian and I, like I said, we've been in this, I guess, now since 2023. So what's that, 3 years, 3.5 years? It feels like so much longer. But we learned from our mistakes along the way. We chose poorly on some of our team members with bad property managers. That's probably our worst mistake in choosing the teammates. And we paid the consequences for that because that property manager put tenants into properties that were just warm bodies and they were not well vetted. And these are all like pictures from from said property management. We've had doors kicked in, we've had bullet holes in walls, we've had SWAT team come in. We've had schedule delays. Schedules go sideways. Some of the properties, like that one property at the beginning, that was a single family home that we turned into a duplex. It is a little harder when you're out of state. You're not there every day. So we had schedule delays. We had permitting issues because it was, or not issues. We got the permits, but like we're in a smaller town. They have one inspector that does all the permit inspections. So things got delayed because they had two, but one got sick and then the one is backed up. So a permit inspection that's supposed to be done in a week took a month or two. So schedule delays do happen. Vacancy periods sometimes do go longer than you expected, so you need to budget for it. You have tenants that decide they want to move out early and it's the dead of winter in Ohio. It's a little harder to rent a unit in the dead of winter in Ohio than it is in the spring. And you will have tenants. You do your best to select the best of tenants. I've put a lot of things in place that I've learned along the way when I'm vetting tenants. And I do background checks and I use a lot of our agent tools that we get as real estate agents to kind of to help me with the background check on a lot of these tenants. So I think I've streamlined the vetting process for our tenants and we've gotten much better at selecting good tenants. But sometimes even those people that like check all the boxes, they meet the criteria, they hit hard times too. Sometimes you don't bat 100% every time and you will have problem tenants that will stop paying rent because they like lost their job, something happened, and a lot of times they leave the property damage that you weren't expecting. It happens. Like this is part of owning real estate. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. Um, there is some shitty days. There are lots of them, but honestly, in my opinion, it's worth it. I think it's worth it. Nothing that is worth having is without risk. You know, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. There's all these cliches. There's a reason for these cliches. So despite the challenges, real estate investing, I still truly believe is worth it, despite bullet holes and SWAT teams and bad tenants, because it does build wealth. It builds wealth through appreciation. As you're paying down the loan, you're getting equity. Your net worth grows. Like if you look strictly at the numbers and look at people who have invested in real estate compared to the stock market, like the dividends are there, like the numbers show it, and it's building wealth over time. I wanted that to be clear. This isn't an overnight, like, you're rich overnight. This real estate is a long game. This is going to take years. It's not going to be days to build that wealth, but the numbers are there to show that it does build wealth. I talked about this earlier. The tax advantages are huge, like with depreciation, deductions, other tax strategies. For us personally, being a real estate agent, we do get realtor status in taxes. So Brian, my husband, still has his W-2 job and he makes a good salary. He's retired Navy. He went to go work as a contractor. And to be honest, we'd be paying taxes through the nose based on his salary alone. But because of my real estate status as an agent, and because we have these investment properties, we're able to take a lot of these deductions, the depreciation, the losses. And because of my real estate agent status, I'm able to offset his salary substantially through taxes. So there's some years where the amount of money that I'm able to offset his salary because of the deductions and things from being a licensed real estate agent and doing real estate investing is almost a salary by itself, which is great in those years where we're not buying and selling as many houses as we would like. The tax advantages are huge. The mindset shift, the way that you look at money and the way that you just look at the world around you, for me, for us, has substantially shifted. It's not a limiting mindset. It's not there's not enough for everyone. Like real estate is something that everyone can use And I think that was part of the mindset shift. Like I said, once upon a time, I probably did think that real estate investing is just for rich people, but it's not. It's really, really not. And it's open to everyone if you know the questions to ask, if you surround yourself with people that have been there, that are willing to share those things. And some of our best friends are now real estate, like just it's a different mindset. The things that we talk about is, what's this next property you're going to buy? How well is that doing? We commiserate over the bad things that have happened, like SWAT and bullet holes. But then we just push ourselves to dream bigger. Like, what's that next step? And it's just, I don't even know. I get all like excited about it and it's hard to put into words. But there's a huge mindset shift when you get into real estate investing and surrounding yourself with the people that have that growth mindset. And then I truly believe as an agent, it just makes you a better agent because now you have all of these tools. Even if you decide not to become a real estate investor yourself, when you learn about, like truly learn about real estate investing, it gives you so many more tools to share with your clients. Like even the clients that are not professional or like real estate investors, that's not what they want to be. Like if you have buyers that are first-time home buyers, you can walk them through a property and you can be like, hey, this unfinished basement with this like walkout, this unfinished walkout basement, this might be a great like income opportunity for you because if you finish it, maybe you could rent it out as an apartment. It would help you pay part of your mortgage. Like it gives you different tools and different ways that you can help your clients that most agents don't even think about. So it definitely is a way to stand out from the competition when you start thinking and giving your clients these options that most agents don't consider because they're not real estate investors and they don't think like real estate investors. So here's some resources to get you started. If you haven't already started in real estate investing and you're kind of like, this is all great and dandy, but I have no idea where to start. So these are kind of the resources that Brian and I use to get started. There's so many more, but this is just a starting point. I highly, highly recommend reading The Cash Flow Breakfast Club by Amna and Shara Casey. Those are our mentors and how we started all this. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I feel like that's classic, but that's another great mindset. And it talks about real estate and how to use that for wealth building. And then one that most people probably haven't heard of is called The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor by Chad Carson. That's Chad there in that picture with us in Vegas. He's a Bigger Pockets author. And so we were able to actually meet him through the Bigger Pockets conference. And now he's another really good friend of ours. That's a fantastic book for someone. It walks you through the investing process from beginning to end. And for us, it was a little less intimidating because his mantra is building a small portfolio that funds the lifestyle that you're looking to build. Not necessarily like in some cases, some investors are like, I want to buy 2,000 doors. That's not what we want to do. We want to build a portfolio that supports the lifestyle that we want to live, which involves seeing our kids whenever we want, not having to ask a boss for time off or being able to travel to Spain when we want to. So those are some essential readings that I recommend. Podcasts, Bigger Pockets has a plethora of different podcasts for beginners. They have some that talk about the market. Like just look up Bigger Pockets on like any of your favorite podcast platforms. You'll find a ton of different like podcasts that they put out on different aspects of real estate investing. Real Estate Investing with Coach Carson. He has also a podcast, super informative. You learn tons just by listening to him. And the Agent to Investor podcast may or may not be a podcast that I co-host with another agent that's up in Maryland, my really good friend, Nico Garcia. That one is more of, two agents that decided to get into real estate investing, and we're sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly about what we're going through as real estate investors. And then because we've been able to grow this amazing network of friends and real estate investors, we have guests that come on all the time that are light years ahead of us or do different types of investing techniques. And so they come on the podcast and they talk about their investing adventures and techniques. And so another great podcast to listen to if I do say so myself. Online resources, I mentioned Bigger Pockets earlier. Go look up Bigger Pockets online and you'll find their website, you'll find their forum, lots of great tools to start learning from. In person, find some real estate investor meetups. If you go to the app, like the Meetup app, and just type in real estate investing in your local area, you should be able to find some real estate meetups in your local area. I highly encourage you to go. If you are in an area like in Northern Virginia, there's pockets in other places in the country. But if you go and meet up and you look up the Cash Flow Breakfast Club, That is the group that was started by the same author that wrote the Cash Flow Breakfast Club. And our first mentor, Brian, and I actually co-host one in Arlington. And it's basically like a 12-step program starting from step one of how do you save for a down payment for real estate investing all the way through. We just did a class last Wednesday on 1031 exchanges, which is that whole like learning how to use the tax law to your advantage. But don't be intimidated. When you show up for these meetings the first time, I tell you it's like drinking through a water hose, through a fire hose, like sandblasting your face, because it is a lot and it can be overwhelming. But just keep showing up, keep talking to people, keep learning, keep, making those intentional connections, because it will lead you to something amazing. You just have to put the effort into it. And like I was saying before, attend real estate investing conferences and masterminds. That picture on the right is us at Bigger Pockets this past October. We usually go every year. And now we go less for the learning, because they do have sessions like breakout sessions where they teach about different investing strategies. And now we go more for the networking aspect, for, reconnecting with people that we already know, deepening those relationships. And then like every time we've gone, we've grown our network more and more. And now we're traveling places to go hang out with some of these people. We've gone to Montana to stay at one of our friends' like boutique hotels, and like we were in Vegas, and it's an amazing adventure that I highly recommend people checking out and thinking about jumping on and doing. Okay. All right. Somebody's gonna laugh at this, and so I apologize for those of you that are offended. I couldn't help myself with the picture. So your journey starts now. Real estate investing isn't just about building wealth. I truly don't think it's just about building wealth. It's really, truly about creating the life, for me, about, having a life without I wish I would have. I'm going to get to the end of the road and I'm going to be like, wow, I had a fantastic life because I didn't just sit at a desk until I was 65 or 70 and wait for them to hand me a plaque and say, good luck. Hopefully you have enough in retirement. Like, it's building the life that I want to live while I still have it. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to start. Real estate investing, like I said, it's not an easy journey. It's not a quick fix. It's something that you have to dive in, though, and you have to learn as you go, and you have to surround yourself with people that will prop you up, that will encourage you, that will teach you, that will hold your hand when you're like, oh my God, these people are driving me nuts. But it's totally worth it. It's not always smooth, but every challenge does teach you something valuable that you can learn in life, that you can use for other investing properties, for other investments, that you can teach others. And every property brings you closer to financial freedom. So just, start doing it, get her done. Don't be afraid. It is a little scary, but like I said, nothing worth having what did I say? Everything worth having has a little bit of risk involved. There's my contact information. I swiped this off of my Cash Flow Breakfast Club slide deck, so that's why it says Cash Flow Breakfast Club in the corner. But this is me. This is my contact information. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to talk about like real estate investing. I'm a total nerd. I get all excited about it. And that's all I got. Oh my gosh, I talked for a very long time. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let you guys ask me questions if you guys have any questions. I talked a lot. I'm like got cotton mouth.
Fantastic information.
Thank
I
you.
do have a question.
Yeah.
This is a full-time job to research all of this. Have you considered forming partnerships where people can invest in the properties that you find as a group?
Yeah, so we personally have not. We do have friends, and there's certain things called, there's also things called syndications. I don't know if you've ever heard of syndications, but syndications are similar to that. We actually invest in a syndication where there's general partners that come together, put the deal together, they manage everything, and then they get investments from people they call them limited partners. So we personally have not done that, because as we've been learning and growing kind of on a smaller scale, we may get to that point at some point, but there are options for those that don't want to do investing full time, either through investing in a syndication. Another way to do it is if you want to be more passive is to become a private money lender. Like sometimes as an agent, you may get a giant slug of money from a transaction. And if it's not cash that you need to pay bills right this second, I know a lot of agents. I have a friend out in California that he uses his commission to lend money to investors at an interest rate and points, and he gets that back and he does short-term lending, like 6 to 12 months. Um, I don't know if that answered your question, but
Um, well, your answer was no, but others do.
others do. Yes. Sorry.
Um, I also remember seeing something not long ago that you can create a 401k with your investments, and then
Correct.
you have all of those tax advantages too.
Correct.
Um,
Yes.
so
It's a self-directed IRA is the blanket term for it. But yes, you can have a as an agent, you can like set up your own 401k, make contributions to it. I have an S corp, so my company could also match if I wanted to do it that way. And if you set it up as a self-directed IRA, that is one of the types of retirement accounts where you can decide to then lend it to someone or use that to invest in real estate. There's lots of rules around it, of course, because it is a retirement account, so you can't pull it out. But yes, there are ways to use retirement accounts for that too.
and also I think one thing that you need to check out is the tenant rights rules. I had a
Correct.
friend who had an investment property in DC, and it was used as a meth lab.
Hmm.
And uh, when it got raided, not only was the property totally destroyed, it had to be completely gutted,
Hmm.
but the chemist, for lack of a better word, had still tenant rights on it.
Yeah, I will
It
say,
was
and
a
that,
nightmare. It was a 2 year nightmare where they were not making any money.
yes, that ties back to knowing the rules and regulations too for the area. And you can usually do a search and look at like government websites to see some of that. Or I have found, I mean, so AI, you garbage in, garbage out. So you have to be cognizant of what you're asking it to look for to get good results. But I've used AI to help with finding what are the tenant rights in a specific market. And then I ask it to give me specific references of where it pulled that information so I can go back and look at it. So AI is one of the tools that has substantially helped us because you said it is a full-time job, but it has helped kind of whittle that time down. But you just have to be cognizant of what you ask AI because it'll give you junk
Mhm.
if you ask a broad question.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, no problem. Does anyone else have any questions? Let's see. I'm looking at the comments to see. I think, do I have a list of these platforms that you can share? Yeah, Kim, I can send that to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, and then Leo was on my podcast.
Yeah,
Yes,
you need to brag about that.
I
That's
did.
awesome.
I did have Leo on the podcast talking about real estate investing because that was that's actually one of the things he started as an agent was doing a lot of like short sales during that time.
And
So
didn't you have his wife too?
no, not yet. We haven't had her on. I need to ask her to come on, but I have not yet. But no, Leo was on. We've had lots of other guests that if you're in the investor world, at least for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're on our podcast. But
Yeah, it was awesome.
thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, we are right. I think we're a little bit past time. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we sign off and I give you the rest of your day back? Perfect. All right. Everyone looks